So the point was made about, reasons to get insurance for younger folks, for kids and stuff, in terms of some of the other products, like a whole life product, a permanent life product, that you could get it and get it while you're still, if you have a child or something that develops a condition that ends up being uninsurable. So I guess it's not an absolute in terms of term life insurance, but it's pretty close to it for most of us. So, use your own judgment. But again, if you're in the extreme situation like this lady paying $600 for a policy that only covers $200,000 for the coverage, that's kind of a no-brainer. That is not a good deal. Okay, but something that's a very inexpensive policy that has the option of being expanded with no more physicals or anything like that. That's a good strategic, sound decision. So you might want to do that. Okay, so the term project, there's some guidelines in here, and don't get too carried away, because it doesn't, I'm not going to evaluate people's papers, so much as a checklist type thing. I mean, I will be kind of looking for quantity, just because I don't want a one-page type thing. I mean, there's specific limits in there, 4 to 5 pages, but there can be some graphics in there. But try not to game it with the type either. I don't need 20 font type or whatever. So anyway, use your own logic, but you're not really going to pull it over on you if you do that. But in terms of what goes in the plan, first off, it doesn't need. Well, don't keep it fairly anonymous. I mean, you can go into details, but make it though useful for yourself. So somebody in a very similar situation to what you anticipate. I mean, this should be a plan that you should be able to use. But for most of you, it's a plan that isn't really going to be executed until 5 years from now, when you're out of college and kind of immersed in your career field. So it's all based on kind of guesses and estimates. But anyway, the absence of a plan is far worse. That any plan is going to get modified. I mean, that's just the way it works. But to not have a plan, that's unexcusable. And that's what ends up with people where they don't get the time value of money, and they think, I'm going to start saving when I'm 50, and good luck with that, because you may have more money then, but you're going to have to put away 70-80% of your salary to try and double up the catch-up, and you're not going to get there. If you would have been more strategic and put away a small amount of money when you're younger, you could have done much better. But anyway, through the course of this plan, things like that are going to be made very, they're going to be illustrated to you, they're going to be highlighted to you, because you're going to go through, in order to complete this plan, you're going to go through and do probably some calculations, and you can use things like I've mentioned Bankrate.com, which is a fairly decent site, where it's got some retirement calculators, and you can, assume how much money you're going to need for retirement, or it even has things to tell you, estimates to do that. And so sure enough, you can kind of screenshot some of those things. And then it will also have calculators to show you how much money you need to start putting away to achieve that goal. And you'll quickly realize that if you're in your 20s, it's not so bad. It's not such a burden upon you. But if you wait till you're 40 or 50, it's a problem. And it's going to change your lifestyle. So again, and this isn't all about greed. This is about, being able to do what you want in your life without having, financial implications. Like I was just saying, with the whole Eastern European thing, it may be the point where I'd go there in a few years, just because the quality of life over there for the amount of money. I mean, I could be the richest man in my village without too much work in it. And as long as the retirement checks keep coming, then you're set. So if you want that kind of flexibility, you need to plan for it. So the due date, I put that out there as April 5th. That part again, flexible on. What I don't want you doing is trying to do a rush project at the end when you've got finals and other things going on. But if you need extra time, that's not a problem. So yeah, fictitious data, whatever sort of data, but make it useful to yourself. I don't, I'm not going to share this with anybody. But anyway, you don't have to. I'm not trying to get in your chili and get in your finances and stuff. But I do want you to kind of come up with a plan that, in some means, is going to achieve what you need to do. Also, I talk about a number of different investments and stuff, and I'll talk a lot more about stocks and mutual funds and things like that. But to tell you the truth, if I had to do all over again, I would probably be a wealthier man had I done as much as I could with real estate. Now, real estate, that being said, if I was given $1 million today, I would not put it in real estate. Not in Alaska, not right now. But 8-9 months from now, I'd be buying. I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a buyer's market here in a year or so. I'm not wishing ill on anybody, but things are going to hit the fan fairly quickly because the state budget is what it is, and jobs are not really increasing. So I'd be a little strategic and a little guarded right now in terms of your personal finances until the state kind of gets through this hump. Anyway, college savings plan if you plan to have kids. Also, things like life insurance we talked about tonight. Student loans. Student loans are kind of an impediment with the generation. Maybe not so much up here, but for some of the students that have got hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans, and they're going to pay off those loans before they can start saving, they are going to end up in that situation where they're delaying their retirement savings, and it's going to make it more and more difficult. And I think the fact that you may be taken care of, but it's just going to mean that there's going to be so much demand on Social Security and other government securities that I think a lot of those programs are going to be means tested, meaning if you have any retirement savings that you put ahead, you may be ineligible for them. So anyway, you just need to be prepared. The Social Security definitely fits into that thing. The life insurance, definitely. Again, with stocks, bonds, mutual funds, stocks and bonds, mutual funds are generally, they can be made up of a number of different assets, but typically they're equities, they're stocks. So even though you say, I don't want any part of the stock market, guess what? You're probably going to end up in there because you'll have a 401k with your company that's probably going to be invested in some sort of mutual fund type setup. So anyway, so it does pay to know a little bit of how that whole process works. And the basic thing with stocks and things like that is just, have a certain risk tolerance. We can show you, and I'll show you some of the graphs and stuff. And the people who lose money in the stock market are people who sell at the wrong times. Most times, unless you're buying super volatile stocks, they're not investment grade stocks. They're more speculative investments. But if you're in blue chip kind of stocks, the bigger stocks of companies that have a track record of performance, if you just ride it out, you will be fine. 2007, 2008, people got clobbered, but guess what? The next year, stocks went up 43%. Well, granted, they were clobbered the year before, but for people who rode it out, nobody lost money who didn't sell. People year to year made money if they stayed in. But if they panicked and sold at the bottom, or they got themselves in a situation where they needed to sell to cover the basic living expenses, or they had a house foreclosed upon, that's where you can get in real trouble. So you just need to be smart about it. And not to say that real estate is completely, as we'll see here in Alaska, I'm afraid, in the next whatever. It can go up and down, but you just have to ride those things out and make sure you have the appetite for risk and not get yourself in over your head where you're forced to sell. Proposed career field, you all are still, most of you, are still sorting it out, and say you want to be a teacher, you want to be whatever profession. Do, as part of your research, look and see about what that profession pays. And I'm not saying you have to be super greedy and say, I can't do that. Just know what you're kind of up against. If it is something that's fairly desirable, usually it, not super well paying. There's certain career fields that are foresters, for example. There's lots of forestry majors out there. There's very few forestry jobs, so it doesn't pay super well. Teaching's a noble profession, but if you're in it for the money, you're not going to be a happy person. So anyway, or you can have you can be a teacher, but be involved in rental properties and have a portfolio rental property and make your income that way. But it's probably not going to be derived through a salary if that's your chosen profession. If you're in the military, obviously that's going to change things, but you would know that, in terms of retirement. But it also is going to put the military people, there's kind of this midlife thing where people get out after 20 years, so they're mid-40s, and all of a sudden they're making a massive career change. 401ks, 403bs. So this gets back to what I was talking about with insurance, where some of those, blended hybrid insurance investment products, they may not have some of the features like a 401k where it's tax deferred, or if one of your goals is to save for college, look up things like 529 plans and TUGMAs and stuff like that. And these things may mean nothing to you, but a quick Google search, even Wikipedia or Investopedia, one of those type of things will tell you what the advantages are. And basically, like for a 529, for example, I've got stocks and stuff in my daughter's name, and I was going to have stocks to save for college anyway, so I put them in a 529. In a 529, I can buy whatever I want. In fact, I've got some crazy stuff in there. I have Lululemon and other stuff that's probably, a bit speculative. But anyway, any of the capital gains that are derived off that 529 plan are tax-free as long as they're used for educational purposes. So that's a huge deal. If I just had that in a regular account, I'd pull it out and I'm having to pay capital gains on it. So that's kind of a no-brainer. So it helps to not only, what you're saving your money for may influence what you're going to do with it. So other personal financial issues, it really is, everybody here, if we were, to get back together 4 years from now, granted I'm still alive. Anyway, you would all be pretty cognizant, some of these terms that you may not be familiar with now in terms of different life insurance products. You're pretty much going to end up knowing all that stuff by the time you're, of retirement age. But the problem is that knowledge is no longer valuable to you because the time to act upon it was when you were young, and you can make some smart decisions now, not get in over your head with credit and other things, personal credit, not ring up credit cards, not do some of that stuff, be a little smarter about, opportunity costs and the rest of that. But anyway, it all gets back to time value of money. And the lack of money that's going to definitely impact your quality of life and ball things up. I need answers. Yeah, to not have insurance, that could be a real problem. Life insurance when you're younger. I mean, something that at least gets you through there. There's also, I got an email from somebody who wanted to. Just said, you know what, I'm not interested in the stock market whatsoever. I'm going to put all my money in, real estate. Is that acceptable? Certainly, Or you can be one of these people that, I wouldn't suggest it, but you could be one of these people that, knows everything about antique firearms or precious jewels or something like that. I'm not one of those guys. I would pretty much advise you to do a lot of research if you think you're going to do it with like precious metals, with gold and silver. Because I think if you look at the yield curves on those, you're just going to go, oh, no, there's a lot of hype on TV, but over the years, compared to the stock market just kills them. Gold is not. Anyways, I've got some silver. I've got several bars of silver there. It's regrettable. I mean, they're doing nothing. And they're supposed to be a hedge, meaning when the stock market goes down, the silver's supposed to go up. Well, guess what? Silver, gold, those things, platinum, they're industrial metals as well. And that's their main use. And when the stock market goes in the tank, the economy goes in the tank, the demand for all those things goes way down in the industrial side, and so the value stays down. So it didn't work like it was supposed to. Diamonds, precious metals, diamonds and gems and things like that. In the Middle East, there's so many fakes out there. And then diamonds, the real ones, there's a cartel, De Beers. They control it. If they want to flood the market at some point, I'm not willing to put my hands in, some Dutch cartel that could Anyway, so you kind of come full circle, and it's like, yeah, what am I going to do? I'm kind of looking at stocks. I'm kind of looking at, real estate. But again, within the gamut of real estate, there's everything from speculative, condos in Miami to, a house in Germany that's completely solid, made out of stone, not going anywhere. And then the same with stocks. You can get involved with, checking little high-tech firms where 9 out of 10 fail, but that one zooms off. Or you can be diversified by a mutual fund that owns a whole bunch of stocks in the sector and is maybe not that exciting, has a low beta, which means it doesn't change very much, but over the long haul, it works out. I'll show you a thing. Warren Buffett is, the Oracle of Omaha. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him. He's very, very famous. Anyway, he entered into a bet with a guy, and I'll get the tape video for you. But what he did was he was arguing for indexed funds back before they were even really a concept, and just basically buying into the stock market as a whole, buying a chunk of the market, a whole selection of a whole range of stocks, and just holding them, not buying and selling, not doing any strategic stuff, just holding them. And he made a bet. It was like $1 million bet with a guy, hedge fund guys who buy and sell, and they're up all night. They're looking at graphs and they're moving money around, and they're just generating a lot of turbulence. They're generating a lot of fees because they're buying and selling and paying commissions. Anyway, bet this guy $1 million that his index fund would outperform, and it actually killed these highly skilled Ivy League economists who anyways, it's proven.
Can't be more Buffett.
Yeah, it's pretty solid that if you do much analysis, because believe me, I buy and sell stocks, and looking at the long-term performance, I would have been far better off to have the Warren Buffett approach. It would have been boring, but oh well. Any questions? So we've looked at Bankrate. I think I don't mean to bore you. We'll just look at one more. But like I say, you can pull stuff off of here and get my dirty laundry there. These top bullets, I was looking for insurance type quotes and stuff, and yeah, I used a bogus email address because you're going to get nothing but static from all these folks. I would start with somebody like AM Best, look at a ranking of companies, select 4 or 5 companies, and then compare them individually. That's probably the best way to do it. Anyway, the internet's too slow in here to make this very meaningful, but if you go, and we've done this before, we can go to it again next week, but if you go to something like bankrate.com and you look at some of these calculations and you look at the format of the papers, because what I just went through is right out of the syllabus that you have, just download it, and you've got maximum flexibility, and a portion of this project is for you to pass the class and get a reasonable grade. But if the quantity is there and it looks like you put some time into it, the grade will take care of itself. But 90% of this value ought to be sort of a template for how you can work this out, how you can get some sort of financial security and not be staying in jobs that you dislike just because you are living paycheck to paycheck and the rest of that. So anyway, there's a whole section here on retirement and these retirement calculators, and if you go through that and start asking some basic questions, I know you're not retiring now, but you need to pick some place and put a stake in the ground. Okay, this is where I want to be 45 years from now or something like that, or even if you're going to retire when you're 55, 30 years from now, and this is how much I think I'm going to need in retirement, and this is how I'm going to get there, and just start working that out. And through the course of your plan too, try and address certain aspects. If you think, I'm gonna live off Social Security, there's plenty of places to look online, and you can actually see what Social Security is going to give you, and believe me, it's a pretty dismal lifestyle if that's all you got. I mean, there's people who end up in that situation, but that's not a plan. People don't, eating top ramen in the dark is not, if you can avoid it. Exactly. It can get, and things are going to get, I'm not saying it's going to be this dystopian, Hunger Games scenario, but things are not getting better, and people are not putting away money like they are. And it's, when it's every man for themselves, you want to make sure you're sort of taken care of because the time is going. Anyway, enough of that. Any questions though on the project itself? Yes. No, you could. I would make it useful. Yeah, if most people would probably anticipate, either being married or being with somebody else, unless you are dead set, bachelor or whatever. So yeah, take that into account, and then because that's going to affect things. Yeah, and again, this is only a plan. It's like any plan, especially when you're doing it for 5 years out in the future. There's going to be a lot of guesses, but at least it'll give you, a scenario to work with. And then it's far easier to have a plan and make modifications to it than to just kind of trudge through life and go, oh, yeah, I should have done that. Yeah, I wish I would have thought about that. I mean, you can modify a plan quite easily, but to have no plan at all it's a recipe for disaster. So yeah, make assumptions as you want. Yes?
Should we write the project as like an essay format, or can we make like bullet points and like...
Yeah, whatever's, don't, I have had some people do like the bullet things and, 5 bullets per page. And hey, look, I got 4 pages. No, you don't. And there's certain things, whatever your format is. But again, it's for you, So you don't have to make it all flowery. You're not trying to necessarily impress me. If it looks like you put some time into it and you thought it through, that's what, I'm looking for. But if it's just bullets that are just kind of, that you can't get there from here, then yeah, that's not going to pass. But in terms of format and stuff, that's why I've deliberately been kind of vague on that, because you want to have the freedom to do it as you.
Can we submit it electronically?
Yeah, it'll go right on Blackboard. Yeah, not a problem. And you've got the time you need. Again, I have had students go, okay, this is what I'm thinking. And they'll send me a product, and yeah, this looks good already, or maybe you want to think about this or something. There's certain things. There's just little tricks to the whatever. You'll say, yeah, you're saving money for college, but what are you doing that? I mean, what vehicle have you looked at? It's not a big deal. You Google search 529. It's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Or I'm going to save this money for retirement. Well, are you using it in a vehicle that's going to give you some tax benefits? If I put it in a 401k, it's tax deferred. But if I put it in a 401k, if I really needed that money, that's not a good place to have your emergency funds, because you withdraw that before age 59 and a half, they clobber you. It's like 10%
penalty plus the tax.
Plus the tax.
Yeah.
I had a nasty situation. I had a daughter in private school, and I had to pull like 50 grand out of there, and I didn't get my 50 grand. I got like 35. I was bumming, but I kept her in school and got her through. It was a whatever strange situation. But there's other things you can do too. Well, we'll speak more about that later. But yeah, there's a lot of creative type things that are all legal. Don't get me wrong. But you can do 401ks like with real estate if you want. You can buy property. Now there's going to be limits on what you can do with that property, but it doesn't all have to be stocks if you don't want it. There are companies that's all they do is put people's 401k money in real estate. And if you think that's a long-term goal, which is probably a valid, comparing real estate prices to stock market, it might be a good value. So anyway, think about it and explore. Just Google's a powerful thing. You can learn a lot from just getting out there and looking, but make sure you stay away from the kind of hype websites. If it's there's reputable people out there, and there's lots of financial information you can get, but there's some sites that are are scams, especially like in the precious metals and